Hello there, first graders. We're going to look again at Let's Go to the Moon. Our I can statements for today are I can answer questions from my text and I can learn new vocabulary words from my text. Okay, our first vocabulary word we're going to look at is a crater. A crater is a big round hole in the ground. If you look at this picture, you can see these things that look like divots or pockets in the ground, like holes. Those are craters. They're very big. In this picture, they look tiny, but they're really as big as maybe a huge lake or as big as a football field or much bigger. So that's a crater. Our next vocabulary word is rocket. A rocket is a machine that takes astronauts up into space. Here is what our rocket looks like when it's leaving the Earth. And then once it's in space, it looks like this. A lot of the portions of the rocket have fallen off and left this main compartment here. This is a rocket. All right, another vocabulary word we have is gravity. Gravity is a force that pulls things down towards Earth's surface. It's how we can walk on the ground without floating or bouncing or jumping. When we just walk, the gravity keeps us touching the ground when we stand still. So you can see that this astronaut is walking on the moon. All right, our next vocabulary words, there are two, and they're actually both on this page. Lunar is the first word. Lunar is something that has to do with the moon. So if it's related to the moon, it's called lunar. And then the next word is on our page here, rover. Lunar rover. Rover is a special vehicle for driving on the moon. Astronauts drove a rover on the moon, and you can see a picture of the rover that they're driving here on the moon. That looks pretty fun, doesn't it? This rover is called a lunar rover because it's driven on the moon. All right, our last vocabulary word is footprints. Footprints are marks left by our feet. I'm sure you've seen a footprint in the snow or in the mud or other places when you've gone walking, maybe in the sand. So here's a portion of our book talking about taking pictures of footprints. On the moon, the ground is very dusty. It's like a finely ground dirt, and it's very soft, and when they would step on it, it would leave their footprints. All right, so we're going to be working again on our book called Let's Go to the Moon, written by Stephen R. Swinburne. All right, remember that the type of book we're reading right now isn't a story, it's not a fantasy, it's not a fairy tale, it is an informational text which gives facts about a topic. So as you read, remember you're going to look for words that tell facts, maybe labels, maybe headings, and you're going to look for pictures that show the real world, not drawn or cartoony, but real photographs. All right, as we read Let's Go to the Moon, I want us to look at the pictures, the photographs in the selection. I want you to think about what you know about an informational text and what you hope to learn while you're reading Let's Go to the Moon. What do you hope to learn about going to the moon? Blast off! Would you like to go to the moon? Let's go! 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off! It can take 4 days to get to the moon. A rocket helps us blast into space. We ride in the spaceship at the top of the rocket. So the spaceship part, remember we looked at it, this was in the top. Underneath was the part that had all the gasoline and fuel and all the parts that were going to fall off later. But this part we're looking at is from the top of the rocket. Notice we have a label here that says the flight. I hope you can see that well, the flight. And then we have one of our vocabulary words, rocket. We know that we saw that on the last page and we see it here as well. There are no plants or animals on the moon. There's no water or air. The moon has rocks, dust, and craters. A crater is a big hole. So remember we read about craters. Those are the holes there on the moon. So we also know that there's no water or air, so you couldn't get a drink
while you're on the moon, unless you brought it with you. And there's no oxygen, so if you'll notice our astronauts wear a helmet, that helmet and that spacesuit helps them to have oxygen to breathe while they're there. Let's look at one of our questions. What things are not found on the moon? It just told us. Look at the underlined no and no. There are no what? That's right, plants or animals. What else? No water or air. Very good. All right, nice job. All right, let's start by looking at our heading here. It says space suits. So remember, when we're looking at informational text, the heading on the page says spacesuit. So that means it's telling us about this section or this part of the book is about spacesuits. We could think about what a spacesuit is like, why they're important, why they keep us safe. So as we think through the text, let's think about why they're telling us about spacesuits. It also has a label. This astronaut, Ronald Evans, is wearing his spacesuit. All right? Then it says, it's time to put on our spacesuits. Spacesuits help keep our skin safe from the very hot sun and the very cold shade. So as we look at the photographs, the pictures, what do we learn about them by looking? What do you see on Mr. Evans' head? That's right, he's wearing a helmet, and it looks like it's probably made of glass. Do you think that that is a really tight suit, or does it look big and puffy? I think so too. It looks pretty large, and it looks like it's not very tight, but maybe more puffy, kind of like if you're wearing your winter coat or your snow pants. What do you see in this portion here? If you look at that astronaut, you can see him climbing on a ladder. What do you see? That's right, he has a big backpack. And if you look at his hands, can you tell what he's wearing? You can see a little bit here. Does it look like he might have gloves? And what's on his feet? Boots. Very good. So there's some parts we can tell about the spacesuit that come from the looking at the picture rather than reading the text. All right, our label is moonwalk. Walking on the moon is fun. We can take big, light steps. There's one of our sight words. Let's look over here and see the next part. We are very light because the moon has less gravity than Earth. All right, let's think through our text. Let's think out loud. When I read about walking on the moon, I could ask myself, why are we very light when we walk on the moon? Where could we find the answer? Do you see it in our text today? You're right, it's on the sentence on page 23. What does it say? The moon has what? That's right, less gravity than Earth. Do you guys have questions about gravity or what it might be like to walk on the moon? I sure do. I think this is pretty amazing. We carry space tools with us. We have jobs to do here. All right. So what job does the astronaut do with the space tools? What does it look like he's doing with that space tool? I wonder if maybe he's picking things up. Maybe we have a clue on the next page that we can see. What might he be picking up if we look at the clue from the next page? Let's scooch it over. Mrs. Dinter's lovely thing here that kind of looks like we're going fast. All right. Moon rocks. We find rocks and bits of dust to bring back home. We will show the rocks to people back on Earth. So there's a couple of sight words, bring and show. All right, so moon rocks, could that be something that he was picking up? And why do you think it's important to learn about moon rocks? What would be special about them? If they use their tools to get them, they must be important. I think that moon rocks could maybe show people back on Earth what the moon rocks look like. They also might be able to help them to understand better what kind of minerals and things are found on the moon. Lunar rover. Remember, we've already seen this when we looked at our vocabulary a little bit ago. We drive around in our lunar rover. It's even more fun than walking in our fat space suits. Look at all the dust the lunar rover kicks up. That is pretty cool to watch. So which words in the sentence help you to know what a lunar rover is? What words do you see here? I'm going to have this scooch down so you can see it really well. What words do you see that would help you understand better what it's like and what it is? Okay, I hope you're answering me. Yes, that's right. So we drive around in our lunar rover. Drive around really helps us to know that it's some kind of a vehicle or something that helps us get around, maybe a little bit like a car. And I want you to check the text to find the answer to this question. Why does the lunar rover kick up dust on the moon? Let's check the text. So I'm going to read it again. We drive around in our lunar rover. It's even more fun than walking in our fat spacesuits. Look at all the dust the lunar rover kicks up. Oh, so why does the lunar rover kick up dust on the moon? Let's think. Here's something on page 31 that could help us answer that question. It says, let's take one last look before we go. We see rocks and dust. So if the ground is covered with rocks and dust, would that help us make sense of why it spits up dust when the lunar rover drives around? All right, taking pictures. We take pictures of our footprints. We take pictures of our spaceship too. All right, I wonder what they use to take their pictures. What do you think? What would you use to take pictures here on Earth? Yeah, you might use your phone. I don't think they had cell phones back in the days when our astronauts went to the moon. But maybe they had a camera. Do you guys have a camera at your house? Maybe moms or dads have one? So what do astronauts take pictures of on the moon? So in these pictures, they took pictures of what over on the first part, right here? That's right, a footprint. And what did they take a picture of here? That's right, their spaceship. Okay, so why do you think it's important to take pictures while they're on the moon? I hear some of you thinking really good thoughts. You're right, it's important to share, right? Because do all of us get to go to the moon? No, just a few, very few select people called astronauts. The rest of us don't have a way to see it unless those astronauts bring pictures back to share with us. Our flag is up. There it is, an American flag, just like we studied in our class with the 13 stripes and the 50 stars. See it there? Because someone from America came and put their flag, our flag, right there on the moon, and it's still there today. So that's what they did after they took pictures. All right, let's see what the next part says. Let's take one last look before we go. We see rocks and dust. Can you see that astronaut down there? I'm going to try and zoom in. See him down there? Doing some more tests and checking things out. All right. So many of the pictures in this selection are actual photographs taken by astronauts on the moon. What important information do you learn from the photographs that's not in the words? What do you learn? I'm going to go back over here so you can see all of this. What do you see about the sky behind the astronaut? That's right, it's dark. And do you see anything interesting about the rocks? There's some different types of rocks, aren't there? Some that are small, some that are big. And part of the spaceship is gold and has legs. Let me scoot that over for you so you can see it. Look at the colors of that spaceship. That all is not written in our text, but we can see it with our eyes, and that helps us very much. There's our flag. It's time to go back home. What is it like to be on the moon? It's strange and fun at the same time. When you look up and see the moon, what do you think? Our moon is beautiful. It says right there. We do have a beautiful moon and a beautiful earth we live on. Pretty amazing stuff.